Welcome to Gurgle, a bite-sized podcast from the creators of Ad Nauseam. Looking to whet your appetite for the classics? Gurgle will tickle your taste buds and leave you wanting more. And now, from the vomitorium, here are your hosts, Dr. David Noe and Dr. Jeff Winkler.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Gurgle, Part 4.
Part 4, we're gurgling again.
That's correct.
All right.
After a small hiatus, right?
Yeah.
We did some breathing, we did some relaxing, we did some long-form podcasting. Now we're gurgling.
Now we're gurgling, right? And we got to keep the banter to a minimum because these things are tight.
Yes, that's right.
All right. So, Dave, what are we talking about?
So this is Part 2 of why you should memorize Latin and how to do it.
Okay. Well, maybe just a brief refresher.
Yes, I think we need to
part
do
one.
that.
So, why should you memorize Latin?
Right. Well, it's maybe not for everyone, but a large portion of our audience are either Latin teachers, Latin students, Latin aficionados, and maybe those who have no introduction to Latin whatsoever can augment and elevate their everyday conversation by slipping a little Latin in here and there.
Absolutely, right.
Yeah, it's going to sound nice. It's a beautiful language, I would say, and it's all a question of how you're going to use your spare time. Right?
Gotcha.
You and I, we like to relax, kick back, watch movies, do things that are not exclusively devoted to learning.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't only do that, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to expand your mind.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
And here's a good way to do that.
All right. So where do you begin?
Well, we previously in Part 1 we covered the first 12 of these bon mots, right?
Yes,
these
yes,
fancy little sayings that are easy to commit to memory. And we have a number of these which are collected by a woman named Laura Gibbs in her little freely available online PDF called Brevissima, 1001 Tiny Latin Poems. So she collected and edited all of these. She says, please note the texts of the poems themselves are in the public domain and may be freely reprinted, modified, and remixed in any way. So that's what we're doing. And you should check out her work if you want to see it, in the original.
Yeah. Now, is that book of hers organized along any particular lines? And so, okay, these poems are from like this era or these authors, or
it seems to be. There's definitely a very sophisticated organization, but it's not chronological.
Okay.
It's a little more thematic.
Okay.
And I'm really enjoying it, and I have excerpted for the Loci Recitandi passages to be memorized. I have excerpted some of those and mixed them in with quotes from the scriptures, taken from different authors. Jerome. Theodore Beza, John Calvin, different translators of the Christian scriptures into Latin. So we mingled those in, and at the end we're going to explain again how you can lay your hands on these.
Okay.
If you want to get both the text, you want to get the Latin edition and the English translation, we have a way for you to do that. So you ready to jump in?
Let's do it. So so we're up to number 13.
We're on number 13, that's right.
What do we got?
And so this is from Psalm 39:7, and this is a real nice, pithy sentiment, which exemplifies a number of interesting Latin elements. So it goes like this: Et nunc quid expecto, Domine, spes mea ad te est.
All right.
Which means, and now, O Lord, for what do I wait? My hope rests with you.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So what I like about this, right, it's highly idiomatic. It's a conversation. The individual's talking to God. It's King David. And so the way to cite this is that when you're citing from an author, you use the preposition apud.
Okay.
Which takes the accusative. So,
Yep.
But if the name is David, it's a Hebrew name, doesn't decline.
So you don't even bother,
No.
Don't make it Davidum.
No,
All right.
no. Some authors do, but the tradition is not to.
Yep.
The tradition that is set by Jerome. So this is apud David. So we got a nice vocative in there, Domine, and then this highly idiomatic phrase, spes mea, my hope rests ad te, with you. It rests next to you.
Okay. Yeah. Now, not to get too pedantic or
That's
anything,
all right,
but
sure.
if I was looking at that, the space me ad te est, I would be more prone not to use a preposition there, maybe use a dative or something.
Yeah.
But is this later Latin where it's becoming that those kinds of uses of the dative and the adverb are kind of falling by the wayside? Or
I think that if we used a dative of possessor there, which is a very interesting suggestion, I think we'd run into trouble with the possessive adjective mea. It sounds a little bit odd to say, spes mea, my hope is your hope, right?
I see.
I think that's what would actually end up happening.
Gotcha.
Although it's an excellent suggestion, it could be reworded to use that dative. But I think if we want to keep spes mea, it's got to be like this.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, so we're still on the
Sure.
first one here. What benefit could a Latin learner get from kind of memorizing this phrase?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. What's going to sink into the mind? What's going to stick?
Well, first of all, good style. Notice the first three words, et nunc quid. How do most people compose a Latin sentence? Okay, subject, object, verb,
Yes.
right? Which is correct. That's good syntax. But real Latin has a lot of monosyllabic connectors.
Yeah.
They're not really fillers. They give the language its rhythm and its point. And so this is very idiomatic Latin.
Okay.
Et nunc quid. At this point now, what am I waiting for? Domine, right? Put it right there at the end. And so you learn that space is a feminine singular because it's modified by mea,
Yep.
right? And because you have a singular verb, est. You learn that you can put an interrogative, quid expecto, third in the sentence, which is something that you can learn from a good composition book, but you got to dig for it, right? You got to dig for it.
Okay.
Here you just have memorized it, so now you can apply it.
Gotcha. All right.
Should we go on to 14?
Let's do it. What's next?
All right. So this is from Appendini, Urbano Appendini, right? An Italian author who wrote these little distiches, these two-liners. And here it goes. Ad bene vivendum quid naturra paravit, nil data me citia, gratius est homini.
Now, is that in a specific meter?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, you know this, Jeff. You're just doing this for the listener.
All right.
It's an elegiac couplet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first line is an hexameter. The second line, roughly a pentameter,
Okay.
double hemiepes. So, ad bene vivendum quid naturra paravit. For living well, right, in order to live well, whatever nature has provided, nothing has been given to man, nil datum homini, that is more pleasing than friendship amicitia.
Ah, yes.
Isn't that a nice sentiment?
It's a very nice sentiment.
It's an excellent sentiment. So, friendship is a gift of nature, and you need it to live well.
Yes.
So in terms of the fine style, we got ad bene vivendum. We got a gerund right there in the front showing purpose.
Yes.
We have amicitia. We got a comparative noun, a feminine singular ablative comparative, in the second line, and we have a gratius. We got the comparative adverb gratius.
Now I'm noticing that second line. So nil datum amicitia gratius est homini.
Right.
So it's nil datum in the English.
Nil data me, right?
Right. But then you jump to the hominy, right?
That's right.
Given to a person.
Yes.
And then you have the amicitia that's kind of embedded in the line.
In the very center.
That's right. Kind of
Yes, exactly.
Embraced by the
Yes.
by the clause. Yeah.
Right. Very, very astute observation. And hominy, right? It's typical in a couplet. You wait till the last foot of the couplet, the last spot in the line, for the big reveal, right? This is how Martial and Catullus read all their witty couplets. And so hominy, right, is put at the very end because that resolves the meaning of the two lines completely.
Excellent.
Right.
Urbino Appendini.
Appendini.
I love that name.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, that's
so
great.
this is apud appendinum, right? It comes from Appendini.
Yes.
Shall we move on?
15.
All right. So this is another couplet, and comes from Verdrinus. So it's apud Verdrinum. It's from his work De Mordibus Puerorum Distica. So distiches, two-liners, on a good character for children.
Okay.
De Mordibus Puerorum. And it goes like this. Divitiae non sunt argenti pondus et aurdri. Virtutes verdas, accipedi vitias.
All right.
So riches are not the weight of silver and gold.
Yes.
Understand, akipe, that virtue is true wealth.
I notice all the V's
Yes.
at the end. So it gives it kind of a nice, virtutis veras de vitias.
That's right.
Gives it kind of a nice rhythm.
Definitely a real alliteration.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's, it's a preachy kind of sentiment, but I think it's true.
It is true.
I think it's true. What do you have if you have lots of wealth, but, you're a wretched, cruel person?
Yeah.
That is not true wealth. Right?
It is true. I was in a recent class of religions class I'm teaching.
Mm-hmm.
A certain kind of sentiment came up in one of the sacred texts we were reading, and one of my students said that. He says, I think we all know that money can't buy happiness.
Right.
But he says, but we all kind of want to find out for ourselves.
Yeah, that's
right?
very wise.
Right.
Sharp young man or woman there
Yes.
who came up with that.
Yeah.
And also the nice thing about this second line here is, as you read it so nicely, virtutes veras accipedi vitias. The adjective here, veras, since it's feminine plural accusative, could go with either virtutes or with divitias.
Oh, yeah.
So, accipe, take, understand. It's an imperative. Understand that wealth is true virtue, or understand that Virtue is
true wealth.
is true wealth, is genuine wealth.
That's very nice.
So placed right between them, that's a figure of speech, apakoinu, right? In between two things could go with either one.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Right, and that's something that Latin can do that English can't.
No,
right?
it can't.
So if that adjective true would be very obviously going with one or the other.
That's right, usually before it, right?
Yeah.
Both Latin and Greek can do that. Latin borrowed it from Greek.
Yes. All right, what's next?
Next is from a guy named Gattis, Giuseppe Gatti.
Gatti.
1703, from his Sales Poetici Proverbialis et Jocosi. Sales is like witty or salty. So witty poeticisms, proverbial sayings, and jokes, Jocosi, one-liners.
All right.
So it goes like this. Viva pie semper frustra peccata taguntur, nullus in his terris, est sine testa locus.
All right, so that same rhythm we've had in the previous two.
That's right,
Okay.
the couplet, yep.
All right.
So this means always live with piety or righteousness. Always live legit, genuine, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's no good trying to cover up your faults, or your peccata, your sins are covered in vain, frustra. There is no place in the world free of a witness.
Ah, yes.
So someone's always going to see you doing it, no matter what it is.
Right.
You think, okay, no one's around, right? I could do this or that. No, there's your sins are going to find you out.
Yeah.
Someone's going to see it.
Right. And again, very true.
Very true.
Very true.
Yep.
And that second line, you have nullus and locis, again, embracing the line. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you say a little bit more about that? Because, I mean, we're looking at this, but if you're not able to see the line, it might not be quite as clear.
Right. Well, I mean, just the sentiment that there's no place on the earth without a witness.
Right.
The no place is almost like it's like it has it in its hands.
Right. Because nullus is the first word in the line.
Right.
Which is modifying locus, the last word in the line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah. So I love it how just even visually a line can enforce, underline, and kind of extend the meaning of what's being said.
And that's part of the beauty of Latin. You know, every language has its charms. If you press me real hard, I can say some good things about English, because it has some, right?
Yeah.
But Latin has different charms.
Yes.
And I think they're really quite delightful.
Right. No, so a quick side note.
Sure.
So these Sales Poetici, who would be reading these? Do we know anything about the audience?
Mostly men and some women, who could read Latin. So, but if you're writing in 1703 in Italy and you're writing these Sales Poetici, you're going to have an international audience. If you want to have an international audience, you can use the lingua franca, and so anybody can read them, right? In England, in France, in Germany, in the New World, right?
Right.
But if you're writing in Italian, you have really restricted the scope of your readership.
Right. Which makes it interesting that really starts to change like within a century. If you think about guys like Mozart,
right,
and other opera writers, you did not write operas in Latin; you wrote them in Italian. So
no,
you do start to see
that's
that
a
shift.
very genre-specific language.
Yes, right,
or
but
maybe language-specific genre.
But I do think you start to see a shift towards languages like French and like Italian in the arts.
Absolutely.
And maybe that is is hand in hand with kind of Latin perhaps starting to decline as a lingua franca.
Right. So you wanted to go there, huh?
Well, I mean,
bring a sad note in the decline of Latin.
Right, we're not done here though.
No. Okay.
We got more. We got another one from David here.
Yeah, from King David, Psalm 25:3, not in poetry, and this is almost a tongue twister to be frank. But Calvin is the translator of this one, and it reflects the original Hebrew. So etiam omnes qui te expectant, non pudefiant qui perfide agunt sine causa.
Yeah, it doesn't roll off the tongue like the previous.
No, it does not.
Poems.
This is probably the most difficult one I've included in the 20 Loci Recitandi.
Okay.
Kind of as a challenge, and also because the sentiment is really nice. All those who wait upon you will not be put to shame. Non pudefiant. So this is the verb fio fieri. Latin students know this as a common irregular verb with the compound of pudor, right, meaning shame. So those who wait on you will not be put to shame. Pudefiant. Now we have a subjunctive. Same verb right next to the previous one, but now in a different mood.
Int versus aunt.
Right.
Yes.
Isn't it amazing? Latin, you can change the entire meaning of a verb by altering one letter.
Right.
That's part of Latin's charm. English, very different.
Right.
So let them be put to shame who behave shamefully, perfide, for no reason, sine causa.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Apud Dawid, Psalm 25:3.
Excellent.
We got to move along, don't you think?
We do. Okay, I have a couple of questions. Maybe I can.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm curious. I think the audience would like to know like for you personally,
Right.
What have the benefits for memorizing Latin? What have they done for you in terms of like learning the language or just other benefits?
Okay, so this is the most surprising benefit. It is much easier for me to memorize things in Latin than in English.
Really?
Yes.
How
I don't know, but I think it's the unfamiliarity of it and the highly structured syntax. If you're reading a sentence of English, it can be, how do I say this? Although the words have to follow a specific order, there's nothing really predictable about how to build a sentence.
Mm-hmm.
But with Latin, I kind of know there has to be a nominative coming. There's got to be a genitive. There's got to be a dative. This preposition's going to expect an adjective of a certain case. And so over many years of study, Latin is really sticky in my memory.
Yeah.
In a way that English is not.
Yeah.
And I think it's partly the unfamiliarity of it.
Right.
And it's partly just the structure that I was talking about.
Now, let me ask you this. So I've noticed something that I struggled with when I make my kind of lazy attempts to learn some Italian or modern Greek and such. And anytime you're learning language, the memorization has to be a part of it.
Of course.
So when you memorize Latin and when you bring these quotes,
right.
From your mind to your lips, are you reading them in your head?
Yes.
You are. You you see the text in your head. Okay.
Yeah, it's very visual.
Okay.
In fact, that's how I speak Latin, to the extent that I do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've worked hard on this. I'm not great at it. There are others who are much better. But as I mentioned to one of the really good ones, our former guest, Patrick Owens.
Yes.
Right. I don't feel like I'm really speaking Latin. I'm composing it rapidly in my head.
Okay.
And then reading it.
Yeah.
And he says, well, that's what we all do until you reach a certain stage.
Right.
And I'm not quite there. Depending on the complexity of the idea, I can do it. But for the most part, I'm just rapidly composing and then reading what's in my mind.
I would think that only kind of a prolonged immersive experience would kind of get you over that hurdle.
That's right. And that's what I hope to do someday.
Yeah.
Is have 5 weeks, 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Remember reading about Schliemann and how he would acquire a language? When he was, what is that book? I think we talked about it before, The Lost Treasures of Troy.
Yeah.
It was mostly a biography of Schliemann with the Troy stuff mixed in.
Yeah.
But as he traveled by train across Europe, in whatever country he would write in that language.
Right. He kept his diary.
That's correct.
Right.
And the way that he mastered up to 18 languages was that he would focus on nothing else for, say, 6, 7, 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And he would not read one word of German if he were mastering French, not one word of French if he were working on Spanish. So I hope to do that someday with Latin. Just, for 7, 8 weeks, no one speaks to me in anything but Latin. I read or look at nothing except Latin.
So you're basically going to abandon your family.
I don't know. This is why I haven't done it yet, because
Right.
I have a lot of responsibilities.
Right.
But I think you're absolutely right. That is the key to getting over that hump of thinking well in Latin and then speaking it naturally without so much focused effort.
Yes. Yeah. That's I mean, I've never gotten there with any other language than, of course, the one you're born with. But,
music.
Well, I mean,
you've got a musical language. You improvise on the guitar and the piano. It's very similar.
And I think there are lots of connections between kind of to learning, being able to kind of perform music or improvise with music and language as
right.
well. But that would be another good Gurgle topic.
Absolutely.
Let's move on.
We got to move on because we're pushing the limits here.
Okay, 18.
Cursus fatordrum nescit mens ulla virordrum solius est proprium scira futura dei.
All right, this is Florilegius?
Yeah, so this is not an individual. It's from an anthology, from a Florilegium.
I see.
Yeah, but I wasn't able to find who were the different authors in this Florilegium.
Okay.
Right? So what does it mean? It's another couplet. Cursus fatordrum nescit mens ulla virordrum. So the mind, no mind of man, knows the courses of the fates.
Okay.
It belongs to God alone to foretell the future.
All right. Very nice.
Yeah, it's nice.
Right.
Yeah, and there's some nice genitives here, fatordrum, virordrum, so we call that internal rhyme.
Mm-hmm.
Good Latin doesn't rhyme at the end of the line. I mean, it does sometimes when you get to the 10th century. Bernard of Clairvaux has some nice rhyming poetry. But for the most part, you don't rhyme. You use, meter. But you can rhyme within the line, and that's what we have here.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of your selections you've chosen, they're fairly heavy. They're fairly weighty.
That's me.
That's you, right?
But here comes a nice one.
Okay, what do we got?
And some of them in the first set weren't so heavy. You can go back and listen to those. So this is from a guy named Julius Wegeler.
Okay.
So it's apud Wegelerum. It's another couplet. Quidara wultali is non debet dicere wultus, sed dicat plene, dulcas amica tene. So another internal rhyme.
Yeah.
So about the heaviness, right?
Yeah.
If I were to choose things that weren't so heavy, a lot of them are fairly salacious.
Oh.
As you know from
Yes.
Catullus
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
Marshall, they're PG-13 or worse.
Right.
So I'm trying to have a broad audience here.
I got
so,
you.
Yeah.
Got you. Understood.
Okay. So quidara wultali is non debet dicere wultus. The one who wants to share with others, who wants to give to others, he shouldn't say, "Do you want some?" Sed dicat plene, but he should simply state, "Dulcas amica tene." Take it, sweet friend.
Take it. Yes.
Isn't that good advice?
It is good advice.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if we're rolling out of here after the podcast, and you say, "Hey, Dave, you want to grab a burger?" No. You should just say, "We're going to whatever our burger joint of choice is,
Yeah.
and you're having a burger with me."
Yeah.
Here it is.
Yeah. No, I think that's very true. Sometimes I drive my wife crazy with my questions.
Right.
And she just says, "Just say what you want."
Right.
Just say, yeah, right. And I think in terms of just in terms of like simplifying human communication.
Oh, I'm all for it.
We tend to kind of hide behind kind of
You're right.
the questions because we don't want to like step on people's toes.
Yes, and it's often in the name or the guise of courtesy.
Right.
But that's not really what's going on.
Not at all.
It's a self-protection mechanism.
Exactly right. So
Whoa, we went psychological here at the end of this gurgle.
and I think it's also regional too. I mean, I think that's a part of like the like the Midwest nice.
Right.
Right. Exactly.
This would never fly in Brooklyn.
Or no, or Boston.
Right.
No. Exactly.
Out with it already.
Right.
Yeah. Quidara wultali is non debet dicere wultus. Just plainly say, "Take it, sweet friend."
That's excellent.
All right, and we wrap it up with number 20.
What do we got?
This is from the Apostle John, the Gospel of John, chapter 14. Again, it's a theological sentiment and maybe heavy, but for me, it's a sweet promise. And as said before, right, you can go through these. You can sort out the biblical quotes if you don't want them. Just learn the others if you like them.
Yes.
So, si quid petieritis in nomine meo, ego faciam. So, if you shall ask for anything in my name, I'll do it.
I will do it.
Yeah.
Very
So
nice.
what's really nice about this, a painless way to teach what's called the simple fact future or the future most vivid,
Yes.
which is a difficult conditional. But we got in the C clause, the protasis, petieritis, which is a future perfect. If you shall have asked,
Yeah.
you don't take it that way in English, but if you ask. And then in the apodosis, the then clause, faciam, I'll do it.
I will do it.
Very straightforward, simple stuff.
You also have the one of my favorite little rhymes. To remember is, after si nisi numine, all your ollies drop away.
That's correct, because it's the quid there.
Quid is an ollie quid.
Right.
Anything.
And that's why we translated it, anything.
Yes.
Yep. So what if students listen? Did I say students? Oops. What if listeners want to become students of this and learn some of these? What should they do? We got 3 options here, right?
Yep. So the first option, they can listen to this episode over and over. They can take their notes, and you can edit it down to if you have your own mishka.
Find your own mishka to do it, and then it's free, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Or
The second one is you can become a Patreon supporter at patreon.com/Latin per diem and get all of these high-quality audio recording with translation, even at the lowest level of support, which is how much?
It's $1.99.
Wow.
That's the Lucan
per
level.
month.
Yes.
The Lucan level.
Yeah.
I was dissing on Lucan. So, and the third way.
The third way, you can sign up for your LLPSI class. Now,
Right.
this is more hardcore, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you're really serious about it, this is where you want to go.
Yeah. Well, I hope that the audience found this entertaining. But
Yeah.
if they really want to, acquire it, go hardcore.
All right.
So that's a gurgle. We got to thank a few people real fast.
Yep. Mishka.
Yes. Sound
Our
engineer.
Our engineer. Ken for the great music that
Yep.
that opens and closes.
We got to mention our sponsors, Hackett Publishing. Check them out, HACKETT publishing.com.
And also Ratio Coffee at ratiocoffee.com.
That's a gurgle. Thanks for listening.